When your third eye chakra is blocked, you remain stuck in your current situation in your life. You remain powerless in your ability to create change, and you remain attached to the current conditions of your life. But when you unblock your third eye chakra is when you unlock your own ability to shift reality in accordance with your desires. So in this video, I'm going to share with you the common habits that keep the third eye chakra blocked, how you can unblock it, and the simple daily practice you can install in your life in order to shift reality at an accelerated rate. So when we speak of the chakra system, we are speaking of the energy centers in our body. And the third eye chakra in particular corresponds on a physical level to the pineal gland. So in Sanskrit, the third eye chakra is known as Agnya. And the first lens that we will look at the third eye chakra through is the physical lens, which I said is the pineal gland. And we can translate Agnya as to perceive. So isn't it interesting that our third eye chakra, our pineal gland, actually perceives the light and the dark that we are exposed to through our retinas. So it picks up the signals from the environment, and then it actually stimulates the production of melatonin. And this is very important because every single cell in your body is actually responding to the light and dark cycles. Different hormones are being released, different processes are being executed. And when we are out of alignment with the rising and setting of the sun, when our circadian rhythm is off, is when our pineal gland can get calcified. So the problem in modern society, one of the most common habits, is that we are exposing ourselves too little to the natural ultraviolet light during the day and too much to the artificial blue light that emits from the screens at night. And what this is doing is disrupting our circadian rhythm and leading to a calcification of the pineal gland on a physical level. Okay, another reason that it's getting calcified for a lot of people is just drinking tap water. Okay, so if you didn't know already, fluoride is a compound which can actually calcify the pineal gland as well. So a lot of dental products like toothpaste have fluoride, and then tap water has fluoride, and then also we're talking about too much artificial light exposure is causing that to be calcified. Okay, so do your own research when you're using the toothpaste. Aim to get toothpaste that is free of chloride. Drink spring water whenever you can. These are the basic habits that you can implement in order to decalcify the pineal gland and make sure that your circadian rhythm is optimized. In the morning, upon waking, see if you can get outside and expose yourself to natural ultraviolet light. Okay, the earlier the better. At night, see how early you can cut off your exposure to artificial blue light. I like using blue light blocking glasses. You can install certain apps on your phone as well. That's a deep rabbit hole in terms of how to reduce the exposure, but want to bring this point to your awareness so you can begin implementing the changes, right? So on the physical level, the third eye chakra helps us perceive light. It regulates our wake and sleep cycles, and the circadian rhythm dictates not only our energy levels, but also how all the different cells in our body are responding to light. So do not let that circadian rhythm get disrupted. Now, on the second level, when we speak of the psychological aspect of the Agnya, the second word that we can use is command. Okay, so it's perceiving on the physical level and commanding on the psychological level. And this is your ability to command reality. Okay, the third eye chakra literally dictates that, and we can link it to our imagination, the capacity to see beyond what our five senses tell us. Okay, we are plugged in to this physical reality right now with our five senses. We see, we hear, we smell, we taste, we feel what is going on in our current environment. But in order to command reality, we must tap into our sixth sense, which is to imagine a condition that is beyond our current reality. Neville Goddard had a quote, and he said that the future must become the present in the imagination of the one who would wisely and consciously create circumstances. So the problem with most people in today's day and age is that we are too attached to our senses. We rely on the evidence of our sensations to determine what's true and what's not true. I made another video on this as well, that we live in an illusion. The visible light spectrum is less than 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum. We are not perceiving so much of the stimulus that is in our environment. And then also the universe in itself is less than 5% physical. So that's a deep rabbit hole in itself. I'll link out to that video as well. But your capacity to imagine a condition beyond the current circumstances of your life is what determine your ability to command reality according to your desires. The problem is that we are exposed to so much stimulus during the day, during the night, whenever you are looking at these screens. We are exposed to entertainment, we are exposed to stimulation of our senses, and that is causing us to get attached to the current conditions. But unless you are able to imagine a condition that is beyond the one that you live in right now, unless you're able to do that, you will remain stuck in the condition that you are in right now. And this also has to do with a certain amount of life force. Your ability to imagine a vision beyond the one that you live in right now is dependent on the amount of life force in your body. What's life force is basically energy, right? It's basically your ability to sit in your space of silence. Because how many of us can actually sit without stimulation and not feel anxious? I feel like anxious as well, but it's about taming yourself, right? Literally taming your mind, which is like a wild drunk monkey swinging from branch to branch, from thought to thought, overwhelmed with the stimulation. Sitting in your place and taking the time to imagine a future that you want, that is not being evidenced by your senses, but it is only existing in your imagination. And that is really the first step. Okay, so on the physical level, we're talking about the pineal gland. On the psychological level, we're talking about our imagination. And before moving on to the next point, I do want to give you a warning, okay? Because we're talking about the 7 chakras, and understand that each chakra transcends and includes the one that came before it. So what I mean by this specifically, that when your third eye chakra is blocked, then of course you're too attached to the current conditions of your life. You're too attached to physical reality, and you are unable to imagine a future beyond the one that you are experiencing right now, beyond the one that you are on the trajectory towards, right? You are unable to command reality. Because when we think about what is being created in our world, the camera that I am filming this on, the car that is standing in front of me, so it's parked, it's not standing, all of these things existed in imagination before they came into physical reality, right? But your ability to imagine is your ability to command reality. But preface that by saying that all of the different energy systems in our body transcend and include the ones that came before. So what I mean by that is that if the third eye chakra is too inactive, then of course you remain attached. But if it's too active, then you aren't grounded anymore. And I've definitely been there myself, where I am too obsessed with the spiritual and the metaphysical, and thinking that this world is just an illusion, and that is a path that leads you to lose your grounding in this physical reality, right? So Joseph Campbell said that the psychotic drowns in the same waters in which the mystic swims with delight. So a note of caution over there, right? If your third eye chakra is too active, you can actually lose your sense of reality and become psychotic in the process. So make sure that you are grounded. Make sure that you have a control and discipline over yourself and your appetites, and specifically around food and sexuality as well. So just want to preface that first and foremost, right? So we want to stay grounded. And then we also have to understand that the condition of our consciousness literally determines the perception of our reality. So, for example, I've literally been in a situation where I'm having an existential crisis and I'm anxious and I feel angsty. But I'm on my way to the gym and I get a very hard session in. I'm sweating, I've exerted effort, I've become present to the moment. And even though nothing much has changed in my reality, my consciousness has changed, my perception has changed, and therefore my experience of life has changed completely just from getting that workout, just from exerting that effort. So the state of your consciousness determines the strategy that you will implement as well. Because if you're anxious, if you are wrestling with inner conflict, and from that stage you are looking to imagine a future that you want to create, it will be near impossible, just because you're caught up in that drama, that internal dialogue. But when you change your state, whether it's through a workout, whether it's through a cold shower, whether it's through breathing techniques, whether it's through getting grounded, whether it's through taking a walk in nature, right? A lot of us are obsessed with changing our state with food. Unfortunately, that is not a healthy way to do it, especially when it's sugar. And we attempt to change our state through stimulating our senses. And yes, our mind and body are very intricately connected. Each one affects the other. And of course, there's productive ways to change our state. Personally, I like going into a sauna. I like exerting effort at the gym. I like taking a cold shower. All of these behaviors allow us to shift our quality of consciousness and therefore shift the way in which we are perceiving our experience. And therefore, when we change our state, we change the story that we are telling ourselves about our lives. And when we change our story, we are changing the strategy that we end up implementing. Okay, so taking control of your state is a huge life hack when you can take control of the way that you feel through the behaviors that you exhibit. Like if you have a mental conflict going on, what you can do is physically exert yourself, change your perception. And if you have a physical ailment going on, you can mentally go ahead and have an impact on that as well. That's beyond the scope of this video right now. Okay, so realize that the condition of your consciousness determines the perception of your reality as well. And when you shift your state, you shift your story that you're telling yourself, and that will end up shifting the strategy that you end up taking. Because if you're constantly caught up in that anxiety and internal conflict and rumination, then that will affect the behaviors that you exhibit. That will affect the way that you approach your life and the behaviors that you do. And sometimes it can be unproductive, whereby we still are attempting to change our state, but it is through dopamine stimulation, whether it's through scrolling, whether it is through food. Those are the two most common ones that I've seen in myself as well. So staying conscious of that is a big one, right? So when you change your state, you change your story, you change your strategy, right? And the mind-body system is intricately related. Each one affects the other, right? So the daily practice that I invite you to consider is that of thinking from the end. So Neville Goddard, definitely recommend you check out some of his work for sure. I'll link out to it below. He was a metaphysical teacher, and he says there is a difference between thinking of the end and thinking from the end. Sometimes we are speaking of visualization, we are speaking of imagining the ideal situation in our life. But when we are thinking of the end, oh, I would be in a penthouse that has a view of the beach, right? When we're thinking of that, there's a subject object relationship, right? There's the thinker and there is the thing that is thought of. But when you're thinking from the end, it's literally you fusing with that idea. So there's no longer a subject object relationship. You are literally there. You're experiencing the emotions, you're experiencing the thoughts, you're allowing that imagined vision to become your reality in your third eye, in your mind's eye. And that is a very subtle difference, because when we allow ourselves to think of something that we want, then we are actually growing a distance between it, because we are the ones thinking it and the thought is actually separate from us. But when we're experiencing it, that is when we are thinking from that position. So whatever vision that you have for your future that you intend on creating, think from that position, live in that vision, let it incite your emotions. Okay, Neville Goddard also says that thought is the seed, emotions are the soil, and then the behaviors that you exhibit, that's like watering that seed in the soil every single day. So you got to experience the emotions associated with that end state, allow that wish to be fulfilled, allow yourself to experience the emotions associated with that wish fulfilled, and that is what will begin to pull and attract that reality to you. And that's a daily practice, and ideally you would practice that upon waking and upon sleeping. Why? It's just because our brainwave state, right? So our subconscious mind is most impressionable right between the time that we're about to go to sleep and right after we're waking up. That's a theta brainwave state, and that is the same brainwave state that hypnotists put their people under in order to plant certain ideas into the subconscious mind. So if you can actually implement that as part of your morning routine, as part of your evening routine, then you will accelerate the process as well. Okay, And then when we talk about the third aspect, right, we talked about the agnya from the from the physical lens, which was to perceive. Talked about it from the psychological lens, which was to command reality. And then from a spiritual lens, it also means beyond wisdom, right? So Leonardo da Vinci said, learn how to see, realize that everything connects to everything else. So the third eye of spiritual wisdom is really about seeing through the illusion of separation, right? So realizing everything connects to everything else, and it's really about seeing through the duality, right? And isn't it interesting that we have our right brain, we have our left brain, we have our logical, we have our emotional brain, and then the pineal gland sits right in the middle of those to see through that illusion of duality, realizing that the source of life is one. And when we connect to that bigger picture is when we can actually begin to realize that we are here for a purpose. We are here to serve the creator of the universe, and in that process we can connect with something bigger than ourselves, right? So really on a first level, Michael Beckwith has a model around this, right? He talks about, in the beginning, life is happening to you. You are stuck in the victim stage, right? You are a victim of the current conditions of your life. This is what a lot of people are going through. They are experiencing life, and they allow the experience, the conditions, the circumstances to determine their state, and they remain attached to that condition because their third eye chakra is blocked, right? And then when you begin to wake up and realize that you have the power to shape reality, is when you begin to have life happen by you, right? That's the manifestor stage. You realize that, oh, your thoughts become your reality. So you begin to control your thoughts so you can control your reality. You begin to command the manifestation of your life, right? Life is happening by you. And then as you begin to connect to something bigger than yourself and realize that you are an instrument here to bring truth, beauty, and goodness into this world, then life begins to happen through you. You are a vehicle of goodness to flow through, of allowing your unique gifts to flow through, and you can become a channel for the greater good to flow through, right? And then the final stage, he talks about life happening as you. There's no separation between you and life. You are life, and you're expressing yourself through that phase, right? So, on an intellectual level, it makes sense. Of course, from a experiential level, I'm yet to experience that. There are moments, of course, I'm sure you've experienced them as well, where you just feel connected to everything around you. There's no separation between you and the experience that you're having, and there is a life force that flows through you. So, it's about understanding everything happens in stages, but step number one is really to wake up to the reality that you command, and then taking ownership of that, and then allowing your thoughts to, or planting the thoughts in your mind and then in your subconscious mind, the ones that you want, so you can go ahead and create the reality that you want, right? So just to recap everything, right? On the physical level, is to perceive the light and dark. We want to regulate our circadian rhythms. We want to stay away from stuff that blocks our third eye, like tap water and toothpaste with fluoride in it. And then we want to wake up to our own power to command reality according to our imagination, right? Neville Goddard's quote that the future must become the present in the imagination of the one who would wisely and consciously create circumstances. And then also staying grounded, right? And making sure that you don't get your head in the sky and you lose touch of your physical reality. You want to stay grounded. You want to make sure you have a level of self control and self discipline. You want to make sure that you have a level of connection with your own life here in this physical existence, and then also allowing that to connect with the higher and bigger picture of yourself, right? People get caught up in polarities. They think it's either this or it's that. It's either physical or it's metaphysical. And I invite you to consider that it's both of them, right? It's not about right and wrong. It's about how we can integrate everything into our experience and how we can implement everything into our daily rituals and habits so that we can go ahead and live the purpose that we are here to live. Okay, so comment below with your experience in waking up and the third eye chakra and imagination and manifestation. I'd love to hear your thoughts. It's always amazing to hear about your experiences as well. Subscribe if you have not already. And with that being said, I will see you in the next one.